Issue 145. We start out with Shadow staring at Hope through the bushes, too awkward to talk to her, I guess, thinking that they, whoever that is, have been coming there like clockwork the past several weeks doing the same thing over and over. He was about to talk to her about whatever's going on, when someone in a brown cloak said he was in need of his abilities, and narration explains that in his desire to confront the creature, he had carelessly overlooked the possibility that he might draw innocents into the line of fire. Shadow then gets tripped and snagged by the ankle by a rope from the person in front of Hope. He says that he knows he's in front of an enemy now, and is surrounded by blue light, and then he and Hope get warped to a metal building. I didn't recognize that light as warping light at first because it was blue instead of green. I thought Shadow was charging up a chaos attack, which he should have used instead of simply fighting with his fists. Shadow then gets somehow defeated in the fight when he should have mopped the floor with him, and is thrown in a chamber, but not a one of warm nutrients like Gerald had made him in. Oh, it's Locke. If it was Locke, then why didn't he just reveal himself to him under the cloak immediately? He tells Shadow that he may be the key to helping him find his family again, a family that everyone believes to be dead. Hope then tells him to let him go, thinking he means some harm because he won't let him go. Locke explains that apparently the teleport field didn't dissolve fast enough, getting her warped here. And then Locke immediately proceeds to warp her back home right away because she's not safe, except no, he doesn't do that. Instead, he keeps talking to her, provoking a traumatic flashback in Shadow as he goes berserk on him, thinking that he's gonna hurt the girl who looks like Maria, because the only time he saw someone other than Gerald interact with someone looking like Maria, he saw the person kill her. So naturally, he's terrified that happening again. Maybe this Shadow really does have PTSD. Because the game's Shadow doesn't. While he does remember bad things happening, he's never been afraid or acted in a panic trying to prevent his past experience from happening again at the slightest of reminders. After that interesting turn of events where Shadow proves he lacks the killer instinct, Hope tells Shadow not to hurt him, saying that she thought he was better than that, and that she's more scared of him right now. Shadow then snaps at her that she's not Maria, and says that he doesn't need any friends, jumping through the roof and leaving without helping Locke get back his family. Well, that was inconsiderate, but I understand why he's acting this way. In the second story, it feels like a waste of time as we see Eggman telling someone we can't see about his worst enemies, which involves explaining that Tails is acknowledged to have prodigy-like skills machinery at this point in the comic. Although it happened so gradually and naturally with him being around Avengers helping all the time that it actually came along pretty naturally. Surprisingly, Amy is the fourth worst enemy he mentions to his Shadow swap bots. And he mentions her tarot card deck as a weapon, which only reminds me of how annoying it is that she hasn't been shown to use them at all yet. If she was a psychic, though obviously I don't want to be in the game-breaking learns knowledge psychically, like Nicole sense, but in some other more balanced way a psychic, I think that would be the perfect way to make her more useful with special powers of her own instead of just summoning a hammer. Meanwhile, in I suppose a different story, Tails is reading a history book when several hundred miles away out west there's a massive explosion. I'm not really sure what the explosion was all about. And back in Knothole, Sonic's playing a friendly game of darts with Ash, Mina, and Bunny, which causes Ash and Sonic to show a rivalry after Sonic says he was robbed of his dart victory, with the misspelling was somehow. Finally back to Tails from that pointlessness. Tails is surprised because he thinks to himself that he always thought the kingdom relied less on technology to avoid being like Robotnik. That would be very stupid of them. He goes to Rotor and Tommy, the former who says that a single seismic event with no aftershocks in the middle of nowhere happened, exerting enough force to potentially do serious damage to Knothole. Tails gets annoyed that Sonic and Bunny are said to be better for handling the threat, and he needs Rotor to tell him that while they're freedom fighters, they're not the ones to lead the charge. They're the brains, who provide the support. Tails then nervously asks Sonic if he's got any plans for the next few days, and Sonic goes to the airship with stuff like a music player and nutrients. Oh good, Tails actually did come to the airship with them, after we see Sally reveal in her thoughts that she's well aware she still inexplicably loves Sonic. The story ends with Eggman saying that he discovered the prototype from Gerald's data files. So was Shadow the one who made that seismic explosion? Was he just mad? Because otherwise it doesn't make any sense. The first story was by Ken Penders, the first story in a very long time by him that's not a Knuckles story. And I really loved it by the end because Shadow's reaction, thinking that Locke was going to hurt Hope, was very realistic of a reaction for someone traumatized by Death of Maria. He went into a panic, not wanting her to get hurt, and attacked, and then left instead of befriending Hope because she wasn't Maria. It was irrational behavior that makes perfect sense for him. And I love his interpretation of his character. It's how the game should have handled it. I also like how he talks all formally. It makes sense. He's not portrayed as trying too hard to be cool, like a moody teenager, like a character only used for fan service. He feels like his SA2 self. It really is a shame Locke couldn't get his help though. You'd think he'd be able to relate to his problem a little, what with losing family and all. The second story by Carl Bollers was totally pointless because we already know who Eggman's enemies are. And if anything, it just raises a huge question. Why wouldn't Eggman have knowledge of his worst enemies already programmed into his new robots? This story logically shouldn't even exist because he shouldn't need to waste time doing this with every new batch of robots. And the final story, also by Ken Penders, is just a story leading into one where stuff actually starts to happen. As Tails wants to go along with Sonic, naturally not one to squander his talents being support just because he's smart, and he and Sonic go on the airship to find the source of the explosion. It was sweet of Sonic to let Tails come along. I thought he wouldn't because we kept past him potentially saying yes. It was alright, but it was just the beginning of a story, and you can't really judge much about a very beginning of a story where not much really happens.